Beyond the estate cotests the ornate iron gates of the Blackwood estate stood tall and cold, severing the cacophony of the outside world from the hundreds of acres of coastal Massachusetts land. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of sea salt and a manufactured sense of mourning. Arthur Blackwood, the most powerful man in New England, who held the lifeblood of the shipping and real estate industries in his palm, had drawn his final breath during a great storm. His death was reported as natural heart failure, but looking at the pale faces of his 4 children kneeling round the coffin, one thing was clear: they did not grieve for their father. They were staring at the wall-mounted safe in the study. The family lawyer, Elias Thorne, entered with a worn leather briefcase. "Per Mr. Arthur's request," he said, his voice raspy, "the will shall only be disclosed after a traditional family ritual is performed. 7 days of living together in this mansion without anyone being permitted to leave." The Blackwood clan consisted of 4 children, each a fragment of raw ambition. Julian, the eldest son, was an elegant alcoholic but a failure in business, always feeling crushed by his father's shadow. Eleanor, the second daughter, was a cold woman with the mind of a mathematician, who believed she was the only one truly fit to run the conglomerate. Sebastian, the youngest son, was a profligate playboy buried in debt from gambling dens in Macau and London. Finally, there was Clara, the mysterious adopted daughter, quiet and reserved, the only one who had cared for Arthur in his final days and the one most despised by the other 3. The first dinner after the funeral was a masquerade of deceit. "We all know father didn't die of heart failure," Sebastian spoke up while slicing into a rare steak. "He always took his heart medication on time. Unless someone swapped the vials." Sebastian's gaze fixed on Clara. She said nothing, quietly setting down her fork. Eleanor added, "Don't blame the help, Sebastian. Look at your $50 million debt first. Father's death came just in time to save you from having your fingers cut off by the mafia." By the 3rd night, the brutality began to surface not through words, but through actions. Julian was found convulsing in his father's study. Someone had coated the rim of his favorite cognac glass with poison. Julian narrowly survived, but fell into a coma. At this point, the atmosphere in the mansion was no longer about greed. It had become a struggle for survival. The estate gates had been locked from the outside by a private security detail following the instructions of the will. They were trapped with a killer. Eleanor began searching every corner. She found a diary hidden beneath the floorboards of her father's bedroom. The final pages were written in a trembling hand. "They are not my children. They are vultures. The only child who truly carries Blackwood blood is not on this list." This riddle sent a shiver down Eleanor's spine. If the 4 of them were not the sole heirs, then who was? The truth began to unravel when Sebastian, in a drug withdrawal-induced panic, confessed to Eleanor that he had snuck into his father's room that night to steal the seal, but had seen another figure leaving first. That figure was wearing the red velvet robe of their late mother, a garment Clara frequently cleaned in the memorial room. A hunt ensued through the shadows of the mansion. Eleanor and Sebastian cornered Clara in the wine cellar. "What have you done?" Eleanor screamed, gripping a bronze candelabra. Clara looked up, her eyes no longer submissive. She laughed a cold, bone-chilling sound. "You think you are noble blood. Arthur Blackwood was a monster. He stole my mother from a poor family, turned her into a prisoner, and when she died, he turned me into a servant under the title of adopted daughter to soothe his conscience. But he forgot one thing. I am the only child he had with the woman he truly loved." It turned out that Julian, Eleanor, and Sebastian were merely the results of cold political marriages. Arthur had left his entire fortune to Clara, but with a ruthless condition. She had to survive 7 days with the vultures. Arthur's mysterious death was not murder, it was suicide. He knew he had terminal cancer and wanted to use his death as a match to incinerate the children he loathed, to see who was the strongest. Sebastian went mad, lunging at Clara with a box cutter. But in the darkness, a gunshot rang out. Elias Thorne stepped out from behind the vintage wine barrels. "I am sorry, Sebastian," Elias said coldly. "My duty is to execute the will, and the will states, if anyone attacks the official heir, they are to be eliminated." Eleanor realized the game had been rigged from the start. Elias was not just a lawyer. He was Clara's secret guardian. Julian had been poisoned to remove the weak eldest brother. Sebastian was provoked to reveal his violent nature. Now, only Eleanor remained. "You can go, Eleanor," Clara said, her voice dropping. "You are the smartest. Take $5 million and leave New England. Never come back." Eleanor looked at the barrel of Elias's gun, then at the terrifying composure of Clara, the girl she once considered trash. Eleanor understood that in the Blackwood family, the winner was not the most cruel, but the most patient. On the morning of the 8th day, the fog thinned over the New England coast. The iron gates of the Blackwood estate swung open. Eleanor stepped out with a small suitcase, her hair noticeably gray after just one night. Julian remained in the hospital, and Sebastian lay further in the family crypt under the guise of an accident. Clara stood on the highest balcony, looking down at the vast lands that now belonged to her. In her hand, she held the family signet ring, the symbol of ultimate power. Behind the estate gates, the war had ended, but Arthur Blackwood's ghost remained, lingering in the hollow corridors, whispering a grim truth. Wealth does not build a family. It only builds a gilded cage where the winner is merely the new jailer. The story of the Blackwoods became a legend in New England, not of wealth, but of retribution. Every brick of the mansion was soaked in the sweat, tears, and blood of those who tried to touch the crown. Clara looked toward the horizon where the sun was rising, realizing that from now on, she would never have a peaceful night's sleep. She knew better than anyone the price of stepping through those gates to become a true Blackwood. The war for inheritance had closed, but the solitude of power was just beginning to take root in the young woman's soul, transforming her into a perfect replica of the father she once hated.